Thanks, Deborah. My name is Chris Fernandez. I am the Senior Director of the Community College Finance Team here at the Higher Education Coordinating Board. I'm joined this afternoon by several of my colleagues, and we are going to be talking through and demonstrating some of the information, the tools and resources that we have created to facilitate the essential occupations process for community college finance. I know there was a little maybe confusion on who exactly this applies to. This is specific to Texas community colleges, public junior colleges. So it does not apply to the Lamar colleges, does not apply to TSTCs. Though if folks from those institutions would like to hear about community college finance, they're welcome to be here and to listen. But I'm going to go ahead and share the slide deck that we created for this. Right. There we go. So as I said, we're here to talk about essential occupations under community college finance. We're going to be doing a little bit of an introduction just to make sure that everyone has the background and context, discussing the new essential occupations website that we've created as a landing page for all of the resources and materials that we'll be showing you, walking through what this process is going to look like, focusing a little bit more on the petition application itself and the certification statement that has to be completed by the college district CEO, whether that's a president or chancellor, for the petition to be valid, discussing the methodology that we have developed in alignment with our administrative rules to score the Oh, have I been muted this entire time?
Just the last part, little part.
Okay. Well, I was just walking through the agenda. Y'all can see the agenda. So I'll just go and skip on ahead to some introduction. There we go. So this is just a quick summary of the rule that we're basing this on. So spring of odd numbered years, this being an odd numbered year leading into a new fiscal biennium. The Higher Education Coordinating Board will accept petitions for
the president hasn't picked the committee yet.
Essential occupations. Those are occupations that can be added to the college's regional high demand occupations list. That is a list that is the basis for the high demand fields, which are the academic fields that when a college gives a credential in one of those high demand fields, it gets the higher high demand fields funding rate. So ultimately, we're talking about how we're determining the composition of that high demand fields list. This process by rule opens up as soon as either on the earlier of May 1st, tomorrow, or the day that the Texas Workforce Commission publishes their updated list of targeted occupations, which, as it turns out, is today. We just found out that the list has been updated. It's online right now, because that list, the target occupations list, is sort of the menu, if you will, of occupations that a college can choose from to petition to have added as essential occupations. And these occupations that we receive from the petition process, if there are more than 5 that are petitioned for in any given region, they have to be then competitively scored. So you'll hear a little bit later on about some of the opportunities for submitting a petition as a consortium or otherwise collaborating with other colleges in your region. One of the key benefits of that is that if 5 or fewer different occupations are petitioned for, then you know exactly what's going to be recommended to the commissioner for his approval, for Dr. Rosser's approval, because there will only be 5 to choose from, and so there will be no scoring involved, and we'll just recommend those as a matter of course. So that is sort of the brief context setting. One more just little kind of housekeeping thing. As I said, we are going to have a lot of Q&A time at the end. So we're going to ask everyone to hold your questions to the end, or you can add them to the chat, and we'll be monitoring that, and we will be addressing all questions at the end. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alexis, who's going to be walking through our website and some of the tools that are available there.
All right. Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon, everyone. So glad to have so many of you here. My name is Alexis Carlson, and I'm a project manager at the coordinating board. I wanted to take a few minutes and just walk you through the web resources that we have. You'll be able to find important links and key dates here. So I went ahead and put in the chat the website to the coordinating board homepage, and I'll do a quick screen share so we can walk through this together. All right, so hopefully everyone is seeing the coordinating board website. If you're able to hover over where it says finance and operations, you'll see that there's the community college finance section over here to the left. And so we have a whole page dedicated specifically to this 2025 essential occupations petition process. And so as you scroll down, you'll see some overview information. We have information about the instructions, the key dates. We'll be walking through the petition itself and all of these resources in more detail during the webinar today. And then as Chris mentioned, part of the petition process includes having the president or chancellor or similar leader complete the certification portion. So we'll be walking through that as well. What I'd like to call your attention to, though, is that if you come up just above key dates, you'll see that there's a section here for FAQs. And so clicking on that will take you to a dashboard that we have set up. And this dashboard is really with you in mind, and also to make it efficient for our team to be able to receive questions from you and get those back out, rather than have all of that stay hidden inside an email box. We do have a dashboard that I desperately hope will load here. So unfortunately, Smartsheet sometimes needs a minute or two to pull itself together, but it looks like it is loading now. And so here on the Smartsheet dashboard, you'll have a link to take you straight back to the coordinating board website. So trying to keep ease of navigation in mind. And as this loads, you'll start to see that we have some questions that have been answered already. And so we strongly encourage you, if you are running into questions during the petition process, that you would be able to first come here to see which questions have been answered. You can see question, you can see answer. There's also a tracking ID. So if you find that something about one of these questions doesn't quite get to the heart of what you're wondering about, you can use this tracking ID to call our attention to it. And as you scroll farther down, the dashboard also has a place where you're able to submit your own question. And so while we always have our CC Finance at highered.texas.gov mailbox available, we strongly encourage people who have questions about the essential occupations petition process to make use of the dashboard. And so as questions are submitted, our team's goal is to be able to have some kind of response to you within about 2 to 3 business days. So as Chris indicated, we will certainly be taking questions today during the webinar. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom bar, you'll see that there is a chat option. And so you're more than welcome to put questions in there, and then we'll do our Q&A at the end. So with that, I will turn it over to Noor Abdulaziz, and she's going to
3.9 to 3.5. And
Noor, over to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Noor Abdulaziz, the Director of Data Management for Community College Finance. So the process of identifying essential occupation is crucial in responding to the evolving economic demands of the state and addressing labor shortage in critical fields. As part of the broader effort to align the Texas Community College system with workforce needs, the petition process allows local institutions to advocate for the inclusion of occupations vital to regional economies that were not initially included within a traditional high-demand field methodology. So to ensure reliability, validity, and fairness in this process, the board has developed a rubric system. This system serves as a strategic tool to address the changing economic landscape and regional labor market needs, providing a consistent framework and evaluating the inclusion of essential occupations in the regional high-demand field.
Okay, I think it's my turn. My name is Taylor, and is it me? Yes? Okay, I'm gonna go. Okay.
All right, no, I think Nora's still going. I think you just muted,
Oh.
or did we
Was
I
I
muted,
muted?
so I got.
You were on mute. I don't know why it keeps auto muting us, but
Sorry.
Okay, so should I continue or maybe
Yeah,
Taylor
sorry. I
can-
thought you muted yourself because you were done. Sorry.
Oh, no, I haven't. Chris, would you mind share the slide? Yes, so in alignment with the provision of the Rule 13,595, the system establishes a standardized process for identifying and including critical occupations on the list of high-demand fields that qualify for additional funding. The process begins on May 1st, or as soon as the Texas Workforce Commission releases the updated targeted occupation list. At that time, institution may submit a petition application for up to 5 occupations, as Chris mentioned, including supporting evidence demonstrating each occupation's regional importance. The submission deadline is May 31st. And then after you're done with the submission, starting June 1st, the board will begin reviewing petitions by checking eligibility for each occupation. And to be eligible, the occupation must appear on the updated targeted occupation list released by Texas Workforce Commission. And also the occupation must not already be included on the board's current high demand field list. Eligible occupations will be unduplicated at the regional level. If the number of unduplicated petitioned occupations per region is 5 or fewer, all will be automatically added to the board's high demand field list. If more than 5 occupations are petitioned in a region, the rubric scoring system will be applied. Each occupation will be scored, ranked, and the top 5 will be recommended to the Assistant Commissioner. And this review process is scheduled to be concluded by June 30th. The final recommended list will be submitted to the Commissioner for approval by July 15. Once approved, the updated high demand field list will be published and the institutions will be formally notified. Approved essential occupations will become eligible for additional performance funding starting September 1st. And we will have some kind of every two year to review the list and see if this is still like eligible. It will stay. If not, then we will have institutions have to like restart the process and petition for another like maybe occupations. I will hand it over to Taylor to walk you through the application process and the certification.
Okay, hi, I'm Taylor. I'm an analyst in data management and research. Like Nora said, I'm going to go through the petition form as well as the certification statement. Share my screen. Okay, so when you open the petition form, you get this intro. You've kind of already seen this, but basically telling you need to submit by May 31st. Only one submission per institution or consortium will be accepted. And then there are several spots in this survey where you'll upload files and you can only upload one at a time. So we just ask that if you have multiple files that need to be uploaded at once, you combine those into one. And there will be reminders for that throughout, but just want to make sure that's clear. So starting out, you'll answer if you're an institution or a consortium. If you're an institution, it's pretty straightforward. You'll pick your region and your college. If you're a consortium, you'll go through, select all institutions in your consortium. Just an example, you'll select your region, which again, all institutions in a consortium need to be in the same region. I know these aren't right. This is just an example. And then you also have to name your consortium just for the rest of the survey. And it might come, or it will come up again. So you just have to name it in order to move on. Next, you're going to fill out your point of contact information. You have to fill out all these forms or all of these parts of the form in order to move to the next page. So I'm just going to fill them out. But this is the person who's completing the survey that could be contacted. It doesn't like that one. Let's see. No. Okay. Okay, so next you get to the statement of petition. So this is where you'll see that consortium name. If it's an institution, the institution name will show up here. This is just stating that you are petitioning for the high demand fields that you select in this form. So next you'll select however many fields you want to petition for. You can petition between 1 and 5. I'm just going to do 1 for now, just to make this quick. And next, you'll go into the form for each individual SOC code that you're petitioning for. So you'll select your workforce development area, and then a list of SOC codes will populate that are target occupations within that area. And then the corresponding SOC name will pop up for you to select. You can look up the target occupation lists here, and there's several links throughout that might help you out through this, as well as the data tool that I believe Nora will be going through after this. So next, you'll fill in all the information that's requested, and most of this is coming from the data tool, so I'm just gonna go through this quickly, but it's gonna force you to respond. So for any numeric responses, we ask that you just enter numbers, no symbols. If it's a percentage, we don't need the percent sign, we don't need any commas, we just need the number. And if you don't do it that way, then it won't let you move on to the next question. So just want to point that out. Next, you'll select, again, Nora's going to go through this. This is one of those places where we're asking for supporting documents. So again, you're going to want, if you have multiple supporting documents for this one question, you're going to want to combine those to add them. This is a forced response, so you have to type something there. Again, same thing here with the numbers. Same for this page. Again, Nora's going to go through this, so I just don't want to go into it too much detail right now. And then next, you'll complete the certification. So we have the certification link here for if you want to send it to your president or chancellor that way, but it's also linked on the website. So when you scroll on this 2025 process page, you'll scroll to the bottom to find certification instructions. This will also take you to that same link And without this, your application is incomplete. So this is a really important part of the application. Something that we also need by May 31st, I believe. So just make sure that you're including this as part of your petition process. And then you'll have the president or CEO sign here and select your institution name, and then you can submit the form. All I have to share right now.
Okay, Chris, would you please share the essential occupation rubric system slide? So the essential occupations rubric system aims to identify critical workforce needs based on what institutions petition for, those that are not adequately addressed through the 10-year employment projection methodology as described under Rule 13,594, ensuring alignment with regional market demands. The rubric system was developed through an inclusive process led by the board, involving cross-divisional collaboration and active engagement with key stakeholders, including Texas Workforce Commission and the Standing Advisory Committee for public junior colleges. And as we move toward implementation, we welcome your input and suggestions for continued improvement. The rubric system integrates both qualitative and quantitative insights and data to create a comprehensive tool for evaluating workforce needs, trends, and opportunities. The criteria reflect a multifaceted approach incorporating current and projected workforce demand, educational and training requirements, economic impact, and stakeholders' input. Each metric is selected and weighted to align with the guiding principles of the mentioned rule, which emphasizes evidence-based decision-making, regional and sector-specific consideration, and responsiveness to dynamic labor market trends. The first criteria, or the first standard in our rubric system, is the workforce demand, which accounts for 40% of the total score. This standard is assessed using 3 criteria: employment growth projection, which accounts for 15% of the 40%. So based on the projected 10-year growth rate for job opportunities in the occupation. The second criteria is job openings, which accounts for 15% of the 40%, evaluates the number of current vacancies and anticipated future openings. The third one is the compensation, which accounts for 10% of the 40%, which assesses the competitiveness and the projected growth of wages within the occupation. The second standard in our rubric system is educational and training requirements, which accounts for 20% of the total score. This standard is evaluated using also 3 criteria. 3 criteria: educational requirements, which accounts for 10%, assesses the level of education or training required to enter the occupation. Program offering accounts for 5% of the 20%, which measures the availability and alignment of academic or training programs with the occupation's needs. This is a qualitative measure. The third one is the skills demand, which accounts for 5%, which evaluates the specific knowledge, skills, and abilities required to fill current opening in the occupation. The third standard in our rubric system is the regional and economic importance, which accounts for 20% of the total score. So this standard is assessed or measured using two criteria: regional importance, which accounts for 10%, evaluates the significance of the occupation within the region, particularly in comparison to its role in the state economy. And economic importance accounts for 10% of the 20%, which measures the occupation's overall contribution to the regional economy, including its impact on economic growth and stability. The fourth standard in the rubric system is employer and stakeholder support, which contributes 10% to the total score. This is a qualitative measure evaluated based on the stakeholder demand through assessing documented evidence of employer and industry support for the occupation, including demand for aligned education and training programs. The fifth standard in the rubric system is institutional demand, which accounts for 10% of the total score. This standard assesses the level of interest and commitment among community colleges to offer or expand training programs aligned with the occupation. This is why submitting petitions as a consortium is strongly encouraged. 10% of the total score is allocated to this standard. And a higher level of institutional demand across colleges in the region can significantly strengthen the case for the occupation. Also, there's another part in our rubric system is that the essential occupation scale. This scale is a structured framework designed to score occupations based on their alignment with key evaluation criteria. It's operationalized through tiered scoring system. Each occupation is evaluated against a specific criteria using a 5-point scale with 1 poor and 5 excellent. Then each point value is converted to a percentage to enable weighted score and facilitate comparability across standards. So, the occupation petition submission expectations would be like for workforce demand, we're looking for the submission should provide strong evidence of long-term sustainable growth, ideally supported by data indicating robust demand for the occupation in the future. Also, we will look for in the petition that the occupation should demonstrate a clear and urgent demand with significant evidence showing a need for many job openings to be filled in the near future. The wage data should also be highlighted, strong compensation that is notably higher than the state median, showcase high economic value and attractiveness for the occupation. For educational and training requirements, the submission should present comprehensive, well-established educational pathways that are fully aligned with workforce needs, focusing on training that exceeds high school and aligns with middle skills and certifications. Also, a well-developed program should be in place, ideally one that closely aligns with the educational requirements of the occupation, supported by strong resources, faculty, and infrastructure. If new programs are proposed, they should be feasible and closely aligned with the needs of the industry. Also, under education and training requirements, the petition should identify significant in-demand skills that are fully aligned with employer needs. As for the regional and economic importance, the petition should provide evidence that the occupation is highly specialized and concentrated in the region with a competitive advantage based on local demand compared to the states. And also the submission should demonstrate strong economic importance, showing that the occupation offers significantly higher wages than the state average, thereby contributing substantially to the local economy. For employer and stakeholder support, the petition should provide robust, comprehensive documentation of employer or stakeholder support, including extensive feedback letters and evidence of industry collaboration demonstrating strong demand for the occupation. And for the last standard, institutional demand, the petition should demonstrate strong institutional support among colleges in the region petitioning for the occupation, indicating widespread demand. Now we're going to move to talk about the data tool. So Taylor walked us through the application, and I walked you through the standards and indicators required in order to fill in the application. So CCF prepared a data tool for you, incorporating all required data into one file that will enable you to maybe use one source to fill in the application. So I'm trying to get it. Okay. Okay. So here is the essential occupations petition website. You can go under the materials here. You'll find data tool. This data tool have all data, quantitative data required to fill in the application. So the tool has two tabs that are important for you to go through before you get into the actual data. So the instruction page will help you be familiar with the tool, how it could be used, what kind of variables do we have here, and different information about data sources and everything. And you're encouraged also to go ahead and go through data notes to be familiar and knowledgeable about the data issues and how you should report some of the SOC code you will have. Then, as you see, the yellow tabs are the regions. We have 12 tabs, one for each region. So the first profile is for Alamo, for example. So the listed occupations are the TWC list. And here is the effective date as per them, their data source. And we provided data, for example, for employment growth projection. If you get into application and you're asked to submit or provide employment growth projection for that specific occupation, you can filter by SOC code, get the number, and then go ahead and pull in data directly from the tool. We prepare this data to help you. However, you will come to use other reliable data sources to support your application, but you need to provide the data source for that. So we can do the data validation required to score the petition. Yeah, so you will find here different data points employment growth projection, middle skills. You see also job openings in the region, median wage in the region, median wage in the state, current demand, current supply. All data points, quantitative ones required to fill in the application is already here. Also, there's one thing that I wanted to notice, that this list is all for TWC. However, the green highlighted ones or the green font is highlighting those who are on the TWC, but also like listed under high demand fields list by Higher Education Coordinating Board. So just the black font are eligible to be petitioned for. Those are already on the list, the green ones. And also in this tool, you will find the list as it is released by the TWC, the date it was downloaded, the date it was like released. Also, here is the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board list for fiscal year 26-27. And also you'll find lots of informational tabs just to, there is a crosswalk between regions, the 12 economic regions and like 28 weather regions. Here is the growth and employment. And there is another tab, wage. Here are the data source for all of that, master data sheets, let's see, that pulls the information from to go into each profile. This is one of the tools that we have for you to support your petition application. There is another thing that I would like to share with you, which is, so the essential occupation scoring methodology, this file that I've already explained in the presentation. So it's available in here in case you want to like go ahead and like look at. The other tool is that the high demand occupation workbook. This is the high demand occupation list that we like generate in order to create the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board high demand field list. Here is the summary like page that summarize all of the tabs before. So you can go ahead and start viewing it from here. And then it is advised also to start viewing the high demand occupation methodology under the methodology tab, which aligns with the rule and all of that. But it's good to like to just understand the process that we went through in order to create this list. Data notes is also an important like tab to maybe go through before like you go into the technical, like let's say tabs. Here is the summary of the list for 26-27. And it was resulted from the analysis of like different occupations based on the growth projection for that occupation. It was ranked to, here is the ranking, here is the list for the statewide, this analysis for the 6-digit SOC code, and then it was like using the crosswalk, it was like converted into 4-digit zip codes to like highlight the occupations that will be eligible for extra funding for that funding cycle. There are also lots of informational like kind of data sources that you can benefit from, like SOC SIP data code, data sheets that like have the crosswalk between the SOC and SIP on 4 digits and like 6 digits SOC and SIP codes. And we have also the crosswalk between the regions. We have also here the region and community college crosswalk. Also here is like we added some like kind of occupations to the list as ad hoc, which didn't like meet the standard or criteria to be included, but it was like recommended by the commissioner to be added. So we added to the list, and here are the occupations. Here is the old high demand field list, let's say for 24 and 25 funding. The SOC occupations. Here's the source is BLS, I believe. Licensed occupation, who are licensed, because licensed occupations was like one of the standards that we use in order like to select those occupations or like rank them. Middle skills list, like middle skills was part of the like standards, but we didn't like actually use it. We just like added it for informational like uses. Also here is the master data sheet that we use in order like to pull information from to do the analysis. Yeah, this is like almost what we've done so far for this like a project. So I will hand it back to Chris to continue. Thank you.
Thanks, Nor. So as you saw in especially in the data tools that Nor was walking us through, there's a lot of information. I know it can seem like maybe even too much. A lot of that just reflects that there has to be separate sets of information for every region. So I promise once you're only focusing on the region for your college, it feels a lot more manageable. But we wanted to be able to provide a centralized location for pulling data, for understanding, what the fields are as they currently stand and what occupations are linked to what fields. So that should be able to give you a sense of, if I were to petition for a certain occupation, and that is linked to these 4 or 5 or however many academic fields, of which 2 or 3, may not yet be on the high demand list. So the idea is to provide as much transparency and predictability as possible around what the implications are of making different petition selections. And so I hope that we've done a decent job providing some visibility on that. As Alexis mentioned, we also know that this is complicated and maybe a little bit confusing. So we certainly urge everyone to make use of the FAQ tool off of the Essential Occupations webpage that Alexis demonstrated. I also wanted to mention briefly that since the target occupations list was just updated today, we are going to be going through and updating everywhere in our materials where that needs to be updated. That includes the petition and the data tool. So, for example, if there has been an update, if there has been a change there, you might find that the petition, if a new occupation has been added to the target occupations, the petition might not have that listed as an option. So apologies for any inconvenience there. We will get that updated very soon, certainly well in advance of the deadline. But there's also a PDF version on the website of that petition, so you can see the entire, all of the fields that have to be entered, even if you're not working on a formal petition. So that should help with making progress even before we get that fully updated. So with that, we had meant to leave 20. It's only 14 minutes left for Q&A, but we would be happy to take as many questions as we can. Do we have questions from the chat that we can address just right off the bat?
Yes, we do. So
Great.
As everybody is finding that chat bubble in the bottom part of their Zoom window, Nora, I wanted to go ahead and ask the first question to you. Does the data tool use macros? It sounds like some institutions may have challenges with macro-enabled spreadsheets. And so does the data tool use macros?
No, I don't think so. No. I use macro in like data analysis thing, but then the data itself is just like an Excel sheet, an Excel workbook. And this applies to the high demand field workbook as well.
Excellent, thank you. And if anyone does find that they're having issues with being able to access or download that, please either use the FAQ to be able to submit that it comes to our team. So just because you submit an FAQ does not mean that it's instantly going to be publicly answered. We'll be able to see that and work with you to make sure that you can access the files. So the next question says that some of the SIP groups are in red in the SOC SIP high demand occupations by region page. And so why are those red? What does that mean?
I'll check and let you know. I'm not sure. Let me go back and see.
So you are welcome to put questions in the chat, or if someone would like to come off mute, you're able to ask your question live as well.
I can't see red things, red fonts or. So would you please like share a screenshot of this so I can like follow up on that later on?
Someone's indicating it's in the HDO dashboard for FY 26 and 27.
Yeah, but the tab, I can't see any red in that tab.
We'll make sure to follow up and get an answer to that. It does look like Oscar was able to put that thank you, Mr. Hernandez, into the chat. And so if that helps highlight for you, Noor, to address that.
Yeah, I know what does he mean. Like, so it's just like for duplication, because we need to remove any duplicated like occupations between like the state list and regional. So we have just one thing unduplicated kind of occupations. So it's just for analysis reasons. It's not like, wasn't like really like indicates anything negative about the analysis. It's just indication that this is like appears both in the state list and the region list. Or as a zip code, it appeared under different subcodes. Let's say. Either or.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Chris, perhaps you might be able to address this next question. It says if an occupation is approved to be on the essential occupations list, but then later is added to the state or region high demand list, does it get removed from the essential list?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So the way that this timeline is laid out right now in the rule, the whole thing will refresh every 2 years. And so the high demand fields list, sort of the standard methodology list, is in place for the upcoming FY26 and FY27. All of the things that are added via essential occupations will be in place for all of 26 and 27. And then we will both recalculate the standard list and reopen the petition process in advance of FY28. So we shouldn't have a situation where anything's getting kicked out for that reason.
Thank you. And Chris, also a question then about how the consortiums work. And so if a group of colleges does have a consortium, does the application allow for multiple occupations?
Whether you're an individual college or a consortium, you can petition for up to 5 occupations. That is the case regardless. Just important to realize that if you're petitioning as an individual college, then if another college, multiple other colleges in your region are also petitioning independently, that's where we get the case where if there are more than 5 different occupations petitioned, then the competitive scoring kicks in.
Thank you. Catherine does have a question. Are we going to be sharing either the slide deck or the recording? Yes, we'll be getting those processed and posted. And so everything will be on the existing Essential Occupations webpage. So really trying to keep those resources centralized for you. And then does the 2-year grandfathering in rule for changes to the high demand list apply to the essential occupations as well? or will essential occupations drop off at the end of the 2-year designated period?
Currently, essential occupations are not grandfathered. So whereas fields identified through the standard process, if they're not identified in a next biennium, they are still funded as high demand for that biennium. That does not apply to essential. So all essential occupations will have to be repetitioned every 2 years.
And a quick clarification going back to the consortium applications. Does the application allow for entry of up to 5 occupations? And yes, you can select 1, 2, 3, or 5 occupations to include on your petition.
Hi, Alexis. I'm sorry. This is Christina from South Texas College. Just to
Please.
clarify something that Chris just said. So the essential occupations, basically, we have to do this process over again regardless. And the reason I'm asking is because when Nora was explaining the process, it mentioned that if no updates were needed, the current list would still be active. So now it's regardless, it's going to have to be redone, even if the occupation is still the same and still needed by the region or by the institution?
That is
Chris, yeah, we have multiple lists, and so perhaps you'd like to be able to address how maybe the statewide and regional lists vary from this particular essential occupation petition process.
Sure, yeah. So yes, under the current text of the rule has this process recycle, the essential occupations process recycles every 2 years. I'm sorry, does that answer your question?
I think so. So you're saying if, like right now that we go through the process in May and we get, let's just say 5 occupations approved, that list is good for AY 26 and AY 27. So when we're, the next odd number year, which would probably be May 2027 comes up, those 5 occupations that were essential occupations that were approved, if they're still needed, you're saying they carry over, or we would go through this petition process again for those same occupations?
They would not automatically carry over. So if
Okay.
they're again not identified through the standard process and the college still wants them to be on the list, then they would have to be petitioned for again.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the way that I've really come to understand it is that because the statewide list can change and then everything sort of ripples off of that, that statewide list does have influence on what then gets counted for the regional lists, and then beyond that, what would apply for the essential list. So this petition process will be operating in each of the odd numbered years. So yes, 2025 and then next in 2027. So another question here in the chat. Some of the SOC codes are in black on the data tool as an option to petition for, but they are classified as a SIP that is on the high demand list. How do we handle that situation?
So,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Chris.
No, you.
Yeah, so I would say that it's already on the list, so you don't have to petition for, you just choose another thing. I would suggest this. Am I right, Chris?
Yeah, I was going to say basically the same thing. It sounds like what you've identified as an occupation where the occupation wasn't identified as high demand yet, so you could theoretically petition for it. But if all of the academic fields linked to that occupation are already on the high demand fields list via a different occupation, then the sort of gain, the marginal gain of adding that occupation would be, it sounds like in this case, 0. So you might want to think about a different occupation that would add more academic fields.
So for a JET grant or similar grants, would those occupations that get approved from the essentials list be allowed to be used, or only the standard list? Not familiar with those grants myself.
Yeah, I'll confess I'm not an expert on the JET grant standards. I will say from a sort of technical standpoint in terms of the rules, the essential fields added via essential occupations are, with the exception of the grandfathering, they are treated, funded the same as the ones identified through the standard list. So, I don't want to say that that necessarily means that JET would handle them the same. But I think for many purposes, they are the same though.
And then a question here, I think about the regional lists. Will the coordinating board be able to add some way to identify the difference between what was originally on the regional list and then what was added because it was petitioned and approved?
We can absolutely indicate that.
Sure.
And so will the petition apply only to the college that petitioned it or to all colleges in the region? This is a great question.
All colleges in the region.
As I've thought about it, it's almost like each college or consortium has the opportunity to take that occupation and throw it into a regional hat. And so coordinating board will evaluate the strength of the petition for that occupation to see which ones have the best evidence as being essential to the region. And then those will be the ones recommended to the commissioner. So considering the weight, not so much of like college A versus college B, but more so across the region, what support or need is there for that particular occupation. And then whatever is approved by the commissioner applies for that region. So clarification here, what is the difference between a high demand and an essential occupation?
So a high demand occupation is one that's identified through kind of our quote unquote standard methodology. So we rank occupations statewide and regionally based on projected employment growth, and the ones that rise to the top of the list, top 10 statewide, next top 5 regionally, those are our high demand occupations. Strictly speaking, they're high demand groups of occupations because we're using an occupation subgroup, the 4-digit SOC code. Essential occupations are the 6-digit, very specific occupations that are being petitioned for through this process. And those are the ones that can be sort of added via petition kind of after the fact, if you will, and have their academic fields added on later. And Alexis posted the link to the relevant areas of the rules. That's really the authoritative source. So that's a good reference.
All right, I know we're at 4 o'clock. I do see that the team at Del Mar has their hand raised. So for those of you who do need to leave, thank you so much for your time. We'll work on getting the recording up. If everyone's able to stay just a minute or two more, then would like to recognize the Del Mar team for their question.
Yes, ma'am. For example, if we have 12 lists, or if we have 12 occupations on the South Texas list, and us as a consortium want to add 5 more, will we end up with 17, or will the original 12 be reduced down to only 12, or how will that work?
So you have, what was the original list of 12 that you were referencing? Is that an occupation list or a field list?
It's a zip code list.
Right. So the zip code list is unlimited. So however many fields are linked in the crosswalk to the 5 regional occupations plus up to 5 essential occupations, we will add as many linked academic fields as there are to that limited number of occupations.
So in other words, we could grow the essential list.
So we will, regardless of how many academic fields are involved, we will take the South Texas list. South Texas colleges will have access to the statewide 10 occupations, the regional next 5 occupations and up to 5 essential occupations. And every single academic field that's linked to those occupations will be funded at the high demand rate.
Super. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Chris, I do see a clarification here, or a request for clarification. This person sees that Victoria College is labeled underneath the Alamo region. Is that correct, or should Victoria College be under Southeast? And I know that there was the option for community colleges to request to move to a different region. I'm not familiar with Victoria's particular status. Maybe you can address that.
No, I'm not familiar offhand. It is in the rule. So there's a rule on regions that establishes those initial regional assignments, and that was based on the address of the college's main campus. So yeah, I think, yeah, I don't want to speculate on where Victoria is. I don't think that we received a region change request from Victoria, but that is something that is available to a college every year. The request to change regions, so long as they haven't changed regions within the last 4 years.
And Nor, can you help me here? I believe that you did include a list of the updated regions in either the data tool or maybe the HDO workbook. And so that would be, which one of those would be the correct place to
It's
look?
the high demand. Yeah, it's under the high demand occupation workbook.
Okay.
Regional assignment, regional assignment tab.
So yes,
Yeah.
what's the rule establishes the original list that was adopted, and then this spring, I believe we had 2 different colleges who petitioned to move, and so being able to look in the high demand occupation workbook will show you what the revised regional assignments are.
Yeah, the only 2 colleges whose region is no longer what was laid out in the original rule are Panola and Navarro. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I hope this has been helpful. I hope that this process is as painless and productive as possible. Our FAQ tool is open and we'll be as responsive as we can to that, as well as to emails to our ccfinance@highered.texas.gov inbox. Please feel free to reach out, and we look forward to your questions and to your petitions. Thank you so much.